For the last few years, Capcom have been releasing hit after hit, but with Resident Evil 3, this may be the first stumble. Let's just hope this stumble doesn't turn into a full-on fall from grace.
Well, this was released at a very coincidental time.
Months after the outbreak at the Spencer Mansion, Jill Valentine suffers from never-ending nightmares induced by the horrors of the T-virus. This permanent trauma has led her to leave STARS, that Special Tactics and Rescue Service, and attempt to get the hell out of Raccoon City. With everything packed and ready to go, what could go wrong? Like all good sequels, it drags its characters back into the world of survival horror that ultimately feels more like a companion piece to Resident Evil 2 rather than a fully fledged sequel that can stand on its own. It's a shame that this outbreak occurred in September actually. Jill was only a few months away from seeing Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but she did get to see The Big Lebowski, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, actually that probably gave us some weird flashbacks, Blues Brothers 2000, you know what, never mind that, no, she didn't need to see that. Unlike its original incarnation, you meet the titular adversary almost immediately, smashing into Jill's apartment. Don't you know it's polite to knock, Nemesis? You fucking bellend. Thus beginning your escape out of the city. Along the way, meeting other survivors and uncovering the Umbrella Company's true motivation behind sending in the mercenaries. I'll give you a hint, it's not purely for good reasons. Fuck! It still knows what it is though, a goofy, over-the-top homage to action horror films of the 90s.
That's the 1990s to all you historians out there. And to all you future people, is the world still fucked? Good.
But knowing what it is doesn't mean it's good. Don't let that fool you. Mr. X from the Resident Evil 2 remake felt like a genuine stalker as he pursued you around the entire police station. But this system and enemy just was not evolved for the new game. Simply given a couple new moves and planted into a couple of sequences that don't even feel like a new experience. There are real moments of what feels like artificial difficulty that result in an infuriating experience. One example would be that if you run out of a door and discover an enemy, you can't just run back. You have to be looking at the door before it opens up, leaving you extremely vulnerable to attacks. Enemies will also just spring out of nowhere, just to take off some of your health or just be bullet sponges. And some of the narrative threads don't really seem to go anywhere. Jill's fear of her infection seems to disappear almost instantly once Nemesis turns up. And yes, it does slightly reappear when you fight the bugs and when she actually gets infected, but it feels like it never really ties together and pays off. There are a few areas that have been cut from the original and it really shows. As you play through it, you'll go from area to area without much time passing and quickly reach the end, possibly within a single sitting. But where the game shines is in its replayability. Despite the fact that I was disappointed with its length, it took me less than 5 minutes to start again, with some completion bonuses to see how fast I could complete the game. And once I completed it again, I unlocked some more items and tried beating it with an even faster time. But even with replayability on its side, it still felt like a hollow spectacle with high production values. Even the zombies have been stripped down from their incarnations of the previous remake. In that game, they had a detailed gore system that just isn't present in this one. Why? They had already created it for the previous game. Is it due to the fact that there are far more zombies on screen, hence less processing power can be dedicated to them? I mean, don't ask me, I'm not a game developer, but if there is someone who is and sees this video, comment below and help me understand. This game had a lot of directors compared to the Resident Evil 2 remake, possibly due to Capcom having to outsource development to various companies. The companies including K2 Incorporated, Redworks, and M2. All of the directors bar one had experience with the Resident Evil series previously. Yukio Ando was the only one who seemingly had no experience with the Resident Evil franchise, but had worked with Capcom on Onimusha Dawn of Dreams, excellent game, and had horror experience as a planner on Parasite Eve 2, great game, and Clock Tower 3, meh. Granted that this game only came out less than 18 months after the remake of Resident Evil 2, which is unheard of nowadays, but I wish it had just spent a few more months in development so it could flesh out the game. There were very few glitches, the only one I discovered was on my second playthrough. Here it is. Ultimately, what it feels like is a DLC that was sold as a fully priced game. And with no DLC or extra content on the horizon for Resident Evil 3, it's a very incomplete game. Yes, we got an extra game with Resident Evil Resistance, but I literally played it for maybe a couple of hours and have never returned to it.
So in summary, this is a really well polished game that just feels extremely shallow and just completely misses the mark in terms of length. Let's just hope the next Resident Evil is just better than this one. Isn't that just Resident Evil 4?